Food prices keep climbing, and most people assume eating healthy has to climb right along with them. But at Aldi, some of the best value products in the entire supermarket are sitting there every single week, mostly ignored. Today, we're not counting down 10 random items. We're building an entire day of eating, meal by meal, so you can see exactly how these foods fit together. By the end, you'll have a full day of genuinely healthy meals, snacks, and drinks without spending anywhere near what you'd expect. First up, we start the day with breakfast. Full-fat fresh milk, the one everyone skips for the wrong reason. A 4-pint bottle of full-fat milk at Aldi costs around £1.65. Per glass, that works out to roughly 8 grams of protein, a genuinely useful hit of calcium, and a solid amount of vitamin B12 for pennies. Here's the part almost nobody explains properly. Whole milk keeps you full longer than skimmed or semi-skimmed, and it isn't just because of the extra fat. Fat slows down how quickly your stomach empties, which means the meal you pour it into, a bowl of oats, a coffee, a smoothie, sits with you for longer instead of leaving you hungry an hour later. Skimmed milk strips that fat out, but it doesn't strip out the sugar naturally present in milk, so you end up with fewer calories and less staying power for barely any difference in cost. Watch out for the protein-boosted specialty milks stacked nearby. You're paying a premium for something ordinary full-fat milk is already doing quietly in the background. Pour it over cereal, use it in a coffee, or drink it straight. Full-fat milk earns its place at breakfast simply by keeping you satisfied until lunch actually arrives. There's also a cost angle that's easy to miss. Because it's more filling, you're less likely to reach for a second bowl of cereal or a mid-morning biscuit an hour after eating, which means the extra fat you're paying for often saves you money elsewhere in the day rather than adding to it. But if you really want to improve your breakfast, this next freezer staple might be one of the smartest purchases in Aldi. Frozen berries, the fruit that gets better. The longer it sits in your freezer, a 500-gram bag of frozen mixed berries costs around £1.99 at Aldi, a fraction of what the fresh punnets cost for the same weight, and those punnets are often half mouldy within a few days anyway. The detail worth understanding is what fresh actually means by the time berries reach a supermarket shelf. Fresh berries are often picked before they're fully ripe, so they survive transport. Then they sit in a warehouse and on a shelf for days before you buy them, quietly losing antioxidants the whole time. Frozen berries are picked at peak ripeness and frozen within hours, locking in the anthocyanins responsible for their color and their nutritional punch. In a lot of cases, the fresh berries in the chiller have actually lost more nutritional value than the ones sitting frozen a few aisles over. They're also a genuinely good source of fiber, which fresh fruit juice never gives you. Stirred into porridge, blended into a smoothie, or scattered over yogurt, they cost pennies per portion, and because the bag reseals, nothing goes to waste sitting forgotten in a fridge drawer. Apples, the snack that replaces a £2 bar for 30 pence. A bag of apples at Aldi works out to around 30 pence each. That's a whole snack high in fiber that travels in a bag or pocket without needing any packaging, refrigeration, or preparation. The fiber in an apple, much of it in and just under the skin, is what makes it far more filling than its calorie count suggests. It slows digestion in a way that a sugary snack bar simply doesn't. Apples also contain a high percentage of water, adding to that feeling of fullness without adding many calories. Compare that 30 pence to a branded snack bar at nearly £2, often loaded with syrup and marketed as a healthy option, and the maths isn't close. Keep a few in a bag by the door and you've solved the mid-morning hunger problem before it starts, for less than a tenth of the price of the bar sitting next to the tills. Over the course of a working week, making that one swap can save several pounds while replacing an ultra-processed snack with whole fruit. And unlike most snack bars, an apple needs no wrapper, no ingredients label, and no shelf life planning. It sits in a fruit bowl for over a week without any special care, making it one of the lowest effort healthy habits on this entire list. Moving into midday, this is where most people start overspending. Lunch. Canned sardines, the omega-3. Nobody asks for a tin of sardines at Aldi costs around 85 pence. They don't look exciting, but nutritionally, they outperform foods costing 3 or 4 times as much. You're getting a genuine dose of omega-3 fatty acids, the kind most UK diets fall short on, along with an unusually high amount of calcium, because tinned sardines include the soft, fully edible bones. On top of that, they're one of the few natural food sources of vitamin D, which a lot of people in the UK are quietly deficient in, especially through the darker months. Per gram of protein, sardines are cheaper than almost any fresh fish counter option in the store, and they need zero preparation. No filleting, no defrosting, no cooking. Mashed onto whole grain toast with a squeeze of lemon or stirred through a salad, they turn a forgettable lunch into one of the most nutrient-dense meals on this entire list, for under £1. The tin itself keeps in a cupboard indefinitely, which means you can always have a genuinely balanced lunch ready to go, even on a week where you haven't managed to buy anything fresh. Tinned tomatoes, the lunch base that does the work for you. A tin of chopped tomatoes costs around 45p at Aldi, and it quietly becomes the base for more meals than almost anything else in the store. Compare that to jarred pasta sauces sitting on the same shelf, which frequently cost double for a product loaded with added sugar and salt you didn't ask for. Plain tinned tomatoes give you the same base with none of it, and they're lower in sugar across the board than almost any shop-bought sauce. They're also extremely versatile. The same tin works as a soup base, a pasta sauce, a stew starter, or a batch-cooked lunch you portion out across the week. Because tinned tomatoes keep in a cupboard indefinitely and cook down into more servings than you'd expect from a single tin, they're one of the easiest ingredients to build a week of meal prep around without any of it going to waste. Simmered with garlic and a pinch of dried herbs for 20 minutes, a single tin can turn into a sauce big enough for 3 or 4 portions, which brings the actual cost per lunch down to only a handful of pence once you factor in how far it stretches. Eggs, the only food doing 4 jobs at once. A dozen large eggs at Aldi runs around £2.89. Per egg, that's roughly 6 grams of protein for around 24p. Cheaper per gram of protein than chicken, beef or fish. What eggs deliver that almost nothing else on this list does is choline, a nutrient tied to brain and liver function that many UK diets fall short on without people realising it. You're not getting one nutrient here, you're getting high-quality protein, vitamin D, vitamin B12, selenium and choline in a single shell. Eggs are also one of the few affordable foods that naturally provide all 9 essential amino acids, making their protein especially useful for maintaining muscle and supporting recovery. They work at genuinely any meal. Boiled and kept in the fridge, they're a 5-second lunch edition. Fried, scrambled or poached, they're dinner in just a few minutes. Whether eaten on toast, added to salads or served alongside vegetables, nothing else on this list pulls double duty across breakfast, lunch and dinner quite like an egg does. But every healthy day has one moment where most people go wrong: the hours between meals. That's where snacks come in. Natural peanut butter, the most filling snack per pence. A jar of peanut butter made with just peanuts costs around £1.79 at Aldi. Per serving, you're getting healthy, unsaturated fats and a genuine hit of protein. And because that fat slows digestion, a spoonful keeps you full for far longer than its size suggests. It also contains fibre, magnesium and vitamin E, making it far more nutritious than many processed spreads or sweet snacks. The trap here is real. Some jars on the same shelf list sugar or palm oil as the second ingredient, dressed up with natural branding on the front. Read the ingredients list, not the label. It should say peanuts and maybe salt. That's close to the whole list. Once you've got the right jar, it's one of the cheapest filling snacks in the entire store. Whether eaten by the spoon, spread on an apple slice, or added to porridge and toast. Because it's shelf-stable, a jar can sit in the cupboard for months without losing quality, which makes it one of the few foods on this list you can genuinely stock up on without much risk of it going to waste. And since each serving is relatively small, one jar often lasts much longer than people expect, making the cost per snack surprisingly low. Parmesan cheese, the unprocessed snack. Nobody thinks to reach for. A small block of Parmesan at Aldi isn't something most people picture as a snack, but a piece of 5 to 10 grams, about the size of a couple of dice, is genuinely one of the most useful things you can eat between meals. It's dense in protein and almost entirely unprocessed, which puts it in a completely different category to the crisps or biscuits usually reached for at the same moment. Because Parmesan is aged and intensely flavored, a small piece satisfies a craving for something salty and savory far more effectively than a much larger portion of a blander cheese would, so you naturally eat less of it and still feel satisfied. It also needs no preparation, keeps in the fridge for weeks without spoiling, and travels well if you break off a piece in advance, making it one of the simplest ways to add a protein-rich, unprocessed snack into a day that would otherwise default to something out of a packet. Dates. Nature's answer to a sweet craving. A pack of dates at Aldi works as a genuinely useful stand-in for a sugary snack or dessert. They satisfy a sweet craving with natural sugars rather than the refined kind hiding in most shop-bought treats, while also providing fibre and minerals that help make them more filling than many processed sweets. A small handful goes further than most people expect, so one pack can last quite a while. They're easy to carry, require no preparation, and work just as well on their own as they do chopped into porridge, yogurt, or homemade baking, making them a practical snack to keep on hand. If you're enjoying this breakdown so far, hit subscribe because every week we compare the healthiest supermarket foods in the UK. And when the day winds down, we reach the meal that brings everything together: dinner. Liver, the most nutrient-dense cut. Nobody buys a quick note before this one. This isn't a food everyone needs to eat, and it's not for every night. But for the price, it's worth understanding what you're actually getting. A pack of lamb's liver at Aldi costs around £1.80, making it one of the cheapest cuts of meat in the entire store. Gram for gram, it's extraordinarily high in iron, far higher than red meat, and in the form your body absorbs efficiently. It's also one of the richest natural sources of vitamin A and an outstanding source of vitamin B12, both in amounts that a standard cut of chicken or beef doesn't come close to matching. Per pound, the nutritional density here is arguably unmatched anywhere else in the store. This isn't a make it a weekly habit recommendation. For some people, the taste and texture just aren't for them, and that's fine. But for anyone who does enjoy it, or is willing to try it once, it's a genuinely budget-friendly way to close nutritional gaps that a lot of otherwise balanced diets quietly leave open. Sliced thin and fried quickly with onions, it takes only a few minutes to cook, and because a little goes a long way nutritionally, you don't need a large portion to get the benefit, which keeps the cost of an occasional dinner even lower than the price per pack suggests. Sweet potatoes, the side that replaces the ready-made version. Sweet potatoes at Aldi cost around £1.19 for a bag. They're high in fibre and an excellent source of vitamin A. And because that fibre slows digestion, they're considerably more filling than an equivalent portion of white rice or plain pasta. They also provide vitamin C and potassium, giving you far more nutritional value than many heavily processed side dishes. Compare the cost to a pre-made side dish from the chiller aisle, mash, wedges or gratins dressed up with cream and cheese, and you're often paying 2 or 3 times more for something you could recreate at home with one ingredient and an oven. Roasted, mashed or cubed into a curry, they need almost no seasoning to taste good, which makes them one of the easiest wins on this entire list. One bag can stretch across several meals, whether you're meal prepping lunches or serving them alongside a main dinner, making them both economical and surprisingly versatile. Frozen vegetables, the zero-waste staple. A 1 kilogram bag of frozen mixed vegetables costs around £1 at Aldi. There's no chopping, no washing, and no wondering whether it's still good by the time you get to it. You tip out exactly what you need and the rest stays perfectly fine in the freezer. That alone makes it one of the least wasteful ingredients you can buy. It's also genuinely nutritious rather than a compromise. Frozen vegetables are processed within hours of harvest, which locks in much of their vitamin content before it has a chance to decline the way it does on a fresh vegetable's slow trip through transport and storage. Stirred into a curry, roasted from frozen, or added straight to a stew, it's the easiest way to add fibre and vitamins to a dinner without a single extra step. Frozen cod or pollock fillets, the iodine. Nobody talks about a 500-gram bag of frozen white fish fillets runs around £3.29 at Aldi, compared to fresh fish counter prices that are frequently double for the same weight. White fish is lean, high in protein, low in fat, but the detail worth knowing is iodine. Fish is one of the only reliable dietary sources of it, and iodine is essential for regulating thyroid function, which in turn regulates your metabolism. It's an easy nutrient to underconsume if fish rarely makes it onto your plate. Skip the breaded and battered versions in the same freezer aisle. You're paying for a coating of refined flour and oil that dilutes the protein per pound value the fish actually has. Plain fillets cook straight from frozen with almost no prep, making this one of the fastest, genuinely healthy dinners on this entire list when you've got no time and an empty fridge. Because the fillets are individually frozen, you can take out exactly the number you need for that night's dinner and leave the rest untouched, so a single bag can quietly cover several dinners across the week without any of it spoiling in between. Before we finish, there's one category people often forget when trying to save money: drinks. Water. The one thing you're already paying for. It sounds almost too obvious to mention, but it's worth saying plainly. Tap water costs virtually nothing, and it's the single easiest way to stop quietly spending money on soft drinks you don't actually need. Every pound spent on a fizzy drink or a bottled juice is a pound spent on something water was already doing for free. Making tap water your default drink can save a surprising amount over the course of a month or a year, especially if you're used to buying drinks on the go. It's one of the rare everyday swaps that cuts costs immediately without adding effort, while also reducing the amount of sugar, calories, and packaging that come with many bottled alternatives. Tea. The hot drink that costs next to nothing. A box of tea bags at Aldi works out to a fraction of a penny per cup. It's hydrating, it contains no added sugar unless you put it there yourself, and it remains one of the cheapest hot drinks available anywhere, home or otherwise. Coffee, the daily habit that's quietly expensive or quietly cheap. A jar or bag of Aldi coffee costs a small amount per cup made at home, especially without sugar. The real cost isn't the coffee itself, it's the daily habit of buying it out. A takeaway coffee bought most days of the week adds up to a genuinely significant amount over a year for a product that costs a fraction of that made at home. Full-fat milk. Back again, for good reason. Full-fat milk earns a second mention here because of how often it gets used in coffee and tea throughout the day. Beyond just softening the taste, it adds a small but real amount of extra protein to a drink that would otherwise contribute nothing nutritionally, making your daily cups of tea or coffee slightly more useful than they'd be black. Drinks to avoid. A handful of drinks deserve a brief mention, not because they're complicated, but because they follow the same pattern every time. Fruit juice, energy drinks, fizzy drinks, and flavored coffees. Each one looks healthier than it is, costs more than the alternative sitting right next to it, and contains far more sugar than most people realize, often more per serving than a slice of cake. Many also deliver very little in the way of lasting fullness, so it's easy to consume hundreds of extra calories without noticing. None of them are necessary, and cutting them out is one of the simplest changes on this entire list. Even replacing just a few of these drinks each week with water, tea, or coffee made at home can noticeably reduce both your grocery bill and your overall sugar intake over time. Healthy pantry staples. Some of the ingredients already covered earn a second mention here, simply because they belong in every cupboard, not just in one meal. Tinned tomatoes are worth keeping stocked at all times, the base for more dinners than almost anything else in the store. Herbs and spices deserve a mention too. Flavor doesn't have to be expensive, and a well-stocked spice rack turns the plainest ingredients on this list into meals that taste like far more effort went into them. Passata is worth adding here as well. Cheaper than jarred pasta sauce and considerably lower in sugar, it does the same job as tinned tomatoes with an even smoother texture for sauces. And peanut butter earns its place in the pantry section too, simply because a single jar lasts for months without needing the fridge, making it one of the easiest staples to always have on hand. The rules that actually matter: buy foods, not marketing. The packaging you're paying extra for rarely reflects better nutrition. Compare the price per kilogram, not the price per pack, because that's where the real cost differences hide. Frozen foods are often just as nutritious as fresh, sometimes more so, because they're locked in at peak freshness rather than losing quality in transit. Prioritize protein wherever you can, since it's the nutrient most likely to keep you full and most likely to be under-delivered by cheap, processed alternatives. Avoid paying extra for convenience when the plain version takes only seconds longer to prepare, and build your meals around inexpensive staple foods. Oats, tinned goods, frozen produce, rather than treating them as a last resort when the better option isn't available. None of these rules require a special trip to a health food shop or a bigger weekly budget. They just require walking past the products with the nicest packaging and picking up the plain version sitting right next to it instead. A budget day at Aldi. Start the day with oats, berries, and whole milk. Enjoy sardines and whole grain toast for lunch. Snack on apples, peanut butter, and dates through the afternoon. Finish with liver or frozen fish, sweet potatoes, and vegetables for dinner. Simple, filling meals built entirely around affordable, nutrient-dense staples you can find in any Aldi any week of the year. The biggest mistake isn't buying expensive food, it's believing healthy eating has to be expensive in the first place.